Good to meet you all, by the way, and just want to thank Charlotte and Matt there for fantastic overviews of their views. It made me think quite a lot. So I'm going to approach this from a different angle as an economist, and I'm probably the most unwelcome person today, but nevertheless, we are where we are. And I think in terms of the biggest challenges facing businesses, they're pretty obvious. Clearly, the first one is getting through this crisis, this COVID crisis. That's obviously the biggest challenge. And secondly, coping with Brexit or adjusting to a new normal. And I want to come back to that in a few moments. But before I go into a few details around that, can I just help us to step back a little bit? Something happened a few days ago, which probably many of us didn't even notice. But the biggest free trade bloc in the world has now been formed. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership was signed just a few days ago with 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So China and Singapore and Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, they formed a huge trade bloc. The reason why I say that is as follows. I think before our very eyes, we have a change that was already happening, but it's beginning to accelerate in terms of the balance of power globally. We've seen under Trump, the US look more inwards. Hopefully that will change, by the way. We've seen in the EU, things are not looking good. We've left. And north-south countries in Europe are struggling to cope with that imbalance. And along comes China, which this year will report growth, by the way. They will grow. One of the very few countries in the world that will achieve positive growth this year. And then forming with these other countries this regional partnership, representing 30% of the world's economic size. 30% of the world GDP will now be in that region. That's just a context. The reason why I say it is because the UK post-Brexit is going to have to quickly get up to speed and adapt to a rapidly changing world. Let me now come to the UK very briefly. You all know where we are. We've had a tough 6 months, the first 2 quarters. We had output falling by whatever it was, 25%. We've bounced back in the third quarter by 15.5%. But sadly, we're going to have a downturn in the fourth quarter. So we're going to end the year as a whole probably about 8% lower than we were at the start of the year. But that's just a simple fact of life. There's no point in looking backwards on it now. It's happening. My biggest concerns, and therefore the challenges for businesses, is to be ready for recovery. And on that note, and I'm usually an optimist, as those who've met me before will know, the concern is that, of course, this year and for several years, we've had a delay in businesses investing in new technologies, in skills, in plant machinery. Our productivity in the UK has not been rising very quickly. It's been very flat for the last decade. And this year, we've seen investment spending fall by about 20% across the UK as a whole. So that's important to appreciate the context of this. I think our biggest challenge, therefore, is not just post-COVID, but actually for the next 5 to 10 years, adapting to a new normal. We are facing a lot of risks on the horizon, and Charlotte's, I think her message was really important, that people are feeling the stress, absolutely. And I think the stress is primarily to do with the uncertainty that's coming at us from so many different directions. I think we've got to accept, and I certainly am thinking this way, that we're entering the next decade and with lower growth expectations. Lower expectations about rising living standards, and that puts stress into people's minds. This is not the booming 90s. As I mentioned already, we've got the huge challenges of recovery in business investment and productivity, and therefore job creation and skills creation. At the same time, people are surely wondering about who's going to pay for all of this borrowing that the government has been taking on board and pumping money into the economy. And I've no doubt there'll be a lot of people in different generations wondering who's going to bear the biggest tax burdens. You heard this morning about the pay freeze in the public sector, maybe not the NHS, but the other people in the public sector will be concerned about this. Will there be a tax on the older generation? I hope not, but I don't know. Will there be a grab for wealth tax? All of these are questions and uncertainties that make people feel more stressed. And that's why I appreciated what Charlotte said so much. At the same time, we've got rising unemployment in the country. Now, it won't rise indefinitely. This is a short-term problem, absolutely. But I have a concern. Again, I'm not trying to add to anybody's stress, but I'm trying to highlight the challenges that we all face and will face in the future. I want to give you an example. Think of the number of people who work in the retail sector. And for much of this year, many of them have been furloughed. And most of us have gone online in terms of our shopping. And I wonder how many of us will stay online, and therefore which parts of retail will not recover. Now, the people in those sectors, in those shops and so on, they will find it a challenge perhaps to adapt to this new world of online shopping, because they will not be the same people who service in the shop as who will service online. This is giving rise to what's called a K, the letter K shaped recovery. That's a new jargon for you, by the way. You won't have heard of that before. But the K symbolizes the fact that some sectors will recover and go back to normal, while other sectors will not recover and will have to find their new normal. And I think certain parts of retail sector will find it very challenging, therefore. As I say, so there's going to be some unemployment problems for some people. I hope it's not going to be long term, but I think for some it probably will be, sadly. And therefore, there's going to be a relatively slow improvement in household budgets in the coming 1, 2, 3 years. That will cause challenges for individuals. It will cause challenge for business, because if household budgets are going to rise or improve more slowly, then some businesses are going to struggle as well. And of course, we have the uncertainty regarding the vaccines. Are they going to be not only effective but safe? And last but not least, and I'll end on this, but it's not the happiest note. And remember, I'm normally an optimistic economist. Is there going to be a free trade agreement with the EU? Well, I believe there will be a deal done. Hopefully today, hopefully in the next few days, there'll be a deal done of sorts. I think the deal will be, let's agree to continue talking and pretend we've done a deal. The problem is it will not be a comprehensive deal. And therefore, the challenges for business will be to adjust to the continued uncertainty that I think is inevitably going to exist after January the 1st. And I wish that wasn't the case. We've had more than 4 years to sort this out. We've not yet come to a situation where there is any certainty. And of course, I could be wrong. There may be no deal, in which case on January the 1st, we'll have to be prepared for hold-ups potentially in Calais and Dover. And after that, who knows how long it will take to normalise. But I'll leave you with this last point. I think all of us, whether we're individuals or whether we're businesses, whether it's business strategy or stress levels, we've all got to try and figure out what will a new normal look like for each one of us. Are we going to revert back to the norm, which means going to the pub, going to the restaurant, going to the shops, and coping with whatever is thrown at us? Or will we have to adjust to a new normal, and what will that be for us? I hope I've given you some food for thought. Thank you so much.